This tale throws our hero Ash into the times of castles and knights. That doesn't mean he's lost his enemies in the Deadites. The switch from horror to adventure may feel like a huge swing, but with his boomstick in hand, you will hail to the king. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Horror. I'm Tensa, and today Ash is thrown into medieval ages to fend off more Deadites in Army of Darkness. After a month in theaters, Evil Dead 2 was able to score a box office intake of almost $11 million and received critical praise from fans and critics alike, commending it for its horror-comedy blend and use of special effects. After its release in 1987, plans for a third entry were tossed around for several years. Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis, who helped fund Evil Dead 2, expressed interest in financing a sequel while director Sam Raimi was busy on other projects, including 1990's adaptation of the comic Darkman. However, Raimi decided to return and write a script with his brother Ivan that would pick up where the previous film left off in 1300 AD, wanting to get the character of Ash out of the cabin and move on to something different. Just don't send him to Manhattan. We all know how that panned out for our boy Jason. Placing him in the past was actually Sam's original idea for Evil Dead 2, but lack of budget prevented that from coming to fruition, so now was the time to see his previous sequel idea come to light. With a budget increase of $11 million, this wouldn't be an issue. Bruce Campbell returned to play the titular role of Ash, now stuck in the year 1300 AD, attempting to return to his own time, but running into problems with the local kingdom and the task of retrieving the Necronomicon, resulting in an all-out battle with an army of the dead. There would also be a shift per se in the genre type, becoming more of an adventure action comedy and almost abandoning any real sense of horror. It was also the first time there was big studio involvement with Universal Pictures, who dipped their wick into the film, including forcing Raimi to shoot a different ending and even changing the title from Medieval Dead to Army of Darkness because it sounded more mainstream for audiences. 5 years after the madness of Evil Dead 2, would Army of Darkness be able to survive in the Middle Ages with a higher budget and more comedic focus? Let's take a look. The movie begins with Ash being led through the desert as a captured enemy, even though the ending of the last one showed him hailed as a hero. He gives a bit of a recap, adding that he and Linda worked at S-Mart until the night they went to the cabin in the woods. He reads the incantations, Linda gets taken, he cuts off his hand with a chainsaw, and gets sucked into the portal. When he lands, the events change as the knights see Ash as an enemy, even though the wise man insists he is the hero that was prophesized in the Necronomicon. Lord Arthur doesn't give a shit and says he must be with their enemy, Henry the Red, and announces they'll toss him into the pit. Ash is dragged back to the kingdom for execution, and we meet Sheila, whose brother was killed in battle and blames Ash for it. Before being sent to his death, Ash gets time to formally meet Henry the Red.
Lord of the Northlands and leader of its peoples.
I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but two things right now. Jack and shit. And Jack left town.
One of Henry's random fighters is then tossed into the pit to show us what awaits these men. Sadly, that will be the most blood we get for the rest of the movie. Ash tries to talk his way out of being thrown in, but of course his pleading falls on deaf ears. A Deadite woman attacks him, but he's able to fight back, especially when the wise man shows up to return his chainsaw. He kills her with ease, but as spikes begin to enclose, one ugly son of a bitch comes after him. He manages to pull himself out of the pit, escaping the Deadite and spikes, and confronts Lord Arthur.
You know your shoelace is untied.
Ash, who is now much more confident and aggressive with a slight arrogance to him, threatens the rest of the townsfolk and tells the knights to free Henry and his men. This pisses off Arthur, who challenges Ash to a duel, only to be met by a shotgun blast.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. This is my boomstick!
In the middle of his tirade, he kills the Deadite that somehow pulled itself out of the pit, then demands help on getting back home. He's quickly treated like a king, surrounded by women and food, even getting an apology from Sheila, which he declines fast.
First you want to kill me, now you want to kiss me. Blow.
We are a long way from too scared to swing an axe, Ash. I'm not complaining, I just think it's hilarious. The wise man appears and tells Ash that the only method of returning to his own time is finding the spell hidden within the Necronomicon. Mid-conversation, the old lady in the room transforms into a Deadite and lashes out at everyone until Ash steps in.
Yo, she-bitch. Let's go.
After killing her, Ash realizes he needs to replace that missing hand of his, and in a montage reminiscent of Evil Dead 2, a new mechanical metal hand is built to help him.
Groovy.
Afterwards, Sheila once again tries to make amends with Ash, but he's incredibly hostile towards her. Until he's not, and the two are in love, giving her a big kiss. Ash rides out the next morning with a crew until he's sent alone down a path that will lead him to a cemetery that is holding the Necronomicon. When he finds it, he must recite a series of words exactly right.
When thou retrievest the book from its cradle, you must recite the words, Klaatu Verata Nictu.
Wise Man tries to hammer home the phrase, but Ash swears up and down he's got it and doesn't need to hear more of his nonsense. In the forest, the evil POV chases Ash down and eventually forces him to take refuge in a windmill. Inside he finds a mirror, but knowing how self-reflection has treated him in the past, he smashes that shit to pieces. This only makes things worse though, as little versions of Ash make their way out of the shards and begin to attack Big Ash in some rather goofball slapstick manner. Almost like I'm watching Home Alone.
Falling down!
He wakes up looking like something out of Gulliver's Travels when one of the little Ashes jumps into his mouth through the use of some obvious green screen effects. Through better practical effects, the little Ash starts to grow out from Ash's shoulder until he grows to full size and separates himself, going by the name Bad Ash.
Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
With more references to the previous movies, Ash straps up Bad Ash, dismembers, and buries him, cross-grave mark included. He finally makes it to the cemetery, but discovers he's got to choose from 3 different versions of the Necronomicon. He starts with one that has a vortex to hell inside, sucking in Ash, only for him to escape, looking like some nightmare horseman. The other book just bites him and flies around for a bit, so by process of elimination, he lands on the 3rd book. But he remembers he has to say the words told to him by the wise man first.
Klaatu Verata.
It's an N-word. It's definitely an N-word.
It's definitely an N-word.
Nope, not gonna touch that one. Ash half-asses the end of the chant, causing a shitstorm of the dead rising and some more slapstick / Three Stooges-like humor. Ash escapes from the cemetery with the book, but evil Ash rises from his grave. Ash returns the book to the wise man, but admits he screwed up the phrase before opening it, which awakened the Deadite army. He doesn't care what happens to the kingdom though, because their deal was that if he brought back the book, they'd send him home. Their safety isn't his issue. However, Sheila is kidnapped by a flying Deadite and brought back to evil Ash, who turns her into a Deadite while assembling his army of darkness. You see what I did there? Ash selflessly decides to stay behind and help the kingdom defend themselves against the Deadites, reinforcing his car and providing chemistry books from the trunk of his car to the wise men. The evil army arrives, but is caught off guard by the kingdom's new exploding arrows. They still manage to storm the gate, but are met with Ash's souped-up car tank.
I got money for everybody! Bye-bye.
That awesomeness comes to a crashing end though when normal Sheila appears. She attacks Ash but is easily kicked into the pit. As things get dicey, Henry the Red and his cavalry show up to provide some help. Meanwhile, Ash and Evil Ash have a rematch sword fight that has some actually well done choreography. Evil Ash has his flesh burned away, now nothing but a skeleton. I wonder if that look is a callback to the Evil Dead 2 poster. He gets his hand on the Necronomicon and plans to escape, but Ash has a better idea. The The skeleton army retreats, Sheila is magically turned normal again, and the kingdom makes peace with Henry the Red. Afterwards, the wise man gives Ash a potion to drink that will return him to his time, but he must say the words correctly for it to work. Ash kisses Sheila goodbye and heads off, fading to the present day where he's recalling this entire story to an unenthusiastic co-worker at S-Mart. The evil isn't truly gone though, as a random old lady becomes a deadite in the middle of the store and begins attacking. Ash picks up his heroic ways, fighting off and killing her.
But in my own way, I am king.
Hail to the king, baby.
My overall thoughts on Army of Darkness. It's an amazingly fun departure for the franchise. It's strange because I consider this my first non-horror movie review since I don't consider it part of the genre, rather an adventure comedy. That is not a bad thing. I mentioned that I was iffy on the ending of Evil Dead 2, transporting Ash to the Middle Ages, but that was more so due to the fact that it felt so out of left field when the whole movie took place in the cabin with demons. Here, Raimi places our main character in a totally new environment and surprisingly nails it while also transitioning genres completely. It's enjoyable, exciting, and funny when it could have become the black sheep of the franchise. I remember the first time I saw it, I felt underwhelmed because I loved the first two for their horror, and this one was just so different in tone. Some rewatches had me realizing the intent to create something totally new and get away from the cliche cabin setting. Now I enjoy it so much more as its own wacky adventure. I've never been a big fan of stories set in the Middle Ages. I don't vibe with knights, castles, dragons, and all that. But the set designs look very good and feel real. Implanting this completely different version of Ash in that setting makes it far more entertaining for me. When people think of Ash, they definitely associate his personality with the one presented in this movie. No one cares about the wimp in the original. The second one does make him more of a cool hero, but Army of Darkness makes him the cocky, smart aleck, ladies man badass that we know and love. Campbell is the star of the show. You don't give a damn about anyone else. He ends up playing the hero and the villain, and his performances on both sides are perfect. As Ash, he's the man guys wanna be and girls just want because he's so cool, but he's also a bit of a doofus, i.e. forgetting the words to recite with the Necronomicon. His only goal is to get home, not giving a shit what happens to the people of the kingdom, but I love that he owns up to his mistakes and vows to fight with them before leaving. And I like Evil Ash mostly because that design of his is damn good and definitely looks like the leader of an evil army. He can be goofy at times too, but he maintains his threatening demeanor until his explosive demise. The rest of the cast is just there. Wise Man is there to establish what Ash needs to do to get home, Arthur is the guy who hates him at first but grows to appreciate him, and Sheila is the love interest because I don't necessarily dislike them, it's just that there isn't much to them. I do miss the bloodshed and deadites being extremely scary. Evil Ash is the best looking deadite, but the others either look like old witches or just spoopy scary skeletons, which isn't scary in the slightest. I will admit, though, that the animation on those skeletons is great, a real throwback to the old Ray Harryhausen movies like Jason and the Argonauts. The effects all around are terrific, more zany, but I still hang on to my love of the old practical stuff. The amount of blood is significantly scaled back, which is a bummer to me because I thought it was a crazily insane positive in Evil Dead 2. No one really gets killed per se, since it's not slasher-esque, it's more background characters getting stabbed by swords. I think the slapstick gags are really hit or miss, feeling a lot like Three Stooges sketches. It's not terrible, but it's not the type of humor that makes me laugh out loud. I prefer Ash's actions and one-liners like he's some 80s action hero. Sarcasm and smartasses are more up my alley than physical comedy. The action is well executed, especially in the final act with the storming of the castle and everyone sword fighting while skeletons are exploding. Finally, I'll say that the cinematography is at its best, looking the most professional of the first three. And the score is perfect to sync along with the medieval setting, getting you excited during the action scenes and cheerful during the comedic scenes. So while I miss the creative deadites and blood, the slapstick comedy isn't for me, and the side characters are probably the most forgettable. This entry is a hell of a fun time thanks to Campbell's slick performance as Ash, the change in setting and overall tone actually working out well for Crazy Adventures, and improvements made with effects, cinematography, and score. I give Army of Darkness 4 skeleton heads out of 5. But let me know your thoughts. Do you wish that some bit of horror had been kept in, or do you prefer the change in tone? Is this your favorite version of the character Ash? And which of his one-liners was your favorite? Don't forget to subscribe and follow my Twitter and Instagram. Links to those are in the description. Next week, the horror returns with a totally new batch of teens in the remake Evil Dead 2013. Until next time, peace.